Hello and welcome to Raider HQ After Dark. I'm your host Raider. In this video I wanted to talk about peripheral nerve conditions and how we rate them. I'm kind of putting the cart before the horse because normally I do thoracolumbar spine and cervical spine first, but I kind of wanted to do this because some people had had some confusion in how we rate, and I want to try to provide the information, to you guys to help you understand why we do what we do. So the first thing I wanted to kind of share with you is the DBQ. So I'm going to start at the DBQ and we'll kind of show what's important with the DBQs. Now I have the back DBQ up, but this is going to be true for both the neck and the back. And I did want to point out one macro important thing, like one very, 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 very important thing. If you are service connected for either the cervical spine and you want to claim new secondary radiculopathy, or you have a thoracolumbar spine condition and you want to say claim new sciatic nerve conditions that have never been claimed before, I have to tell you that there was a change in 2024 in which new claims for peripheral nerve conditions have to be completed on the spine DBQ that corresponds with it. So if you have peripheral nerve issues of the arms, you need to have a neck DBQ done. If you have peripheral nerve issues of the sciatic nerve, let's say, then you need to have a spine condition done. Why this is important? If you There is no way around getting an increase exam for your spine. So sometimes you're at 40%, let's say, for your spine. You're pretty much maxed out, and touching it is dangerous. You need to be mindful of that when you try to claim your peripheral nerve conditions, because you can't just claim them as, unless you're claiming them as independent of the spine, like they're not caused by the spine, they're caused by something else, then that's fine. But if you are sitting at a very high spine rating or evaluation, you might want to think twice, because you cannot get around doing the increase exam, which will send you to a CMP examiner. Um, and we've had it to where a lot of people have not went to the exams because they didn't know that, anytime that you do um, the claim for cervical the claim for peripheral neuropathy, that you're going to get an increase exam is basically it. Sorry, my dog was doing something, so I got distracted for a second. So, with that out of the way, that service announcement out of the way, let's review the DBQs. So, for the most part, what we're looking for on a DBQ is, obviously we're looking for, we expect that you're claiming it secondary to a condition. So, we'd want to see the condition, a diagnosis on the DBQ for the condition, and then we would want to see, hopefully, an other diagnosis down here talking about which side is affected and hopefully what nerve is affected. Now, if the doctor doesn't submit the diagnosis here, it's not the end of the world, because we can, as the rater, review lower down on the DBQ and actually use some of the check boxes to rule in the fact that you have radiculopathy. So let me scroll down here. And I will go over the spines in a separate video, but I just wanted to put this out because it seemed to be a confusing topic for a lot of people. So this is the range of motion for the spine, not important for the actual radiculopathy. It isn't until we get down here to section 4. This is where the radiculopathy, neuropathy, neuritis, all those fancy words, this is where this starts to take hold. And this is where your private medical provider will not have done this task right here. So a lot of the times, veterans will want to use their, just use my private medical records. Well, unfortunately, strength is a factor that is measured in how we review, for VA purposes, how radiculopathy is measured, or rated, I should say. So this is true on both DBQs, the neck and the spine. You'll see this on both. Now, muscle atrophy is a sign of the most severe form, it's a residual of the most severe radiculopathy or neurological conditions associated with like partial or complete impingement of the nerve. So if you are, let's say, doing a private DBQ and you want to, like, this is true for you, then it is mandatory that they fill out the rest of the for question 4, because it helps the rater identify that there is no other potential cause of the atrophy. So please keep that in mind. This is a relatively rare condition. I might have rated 3 of these in my overall time as a rater. So we rarely get atrophy. Sometimes you'll see individuals with through and through gunshot wounds to where they'll have atrophy, but it's not related to the neurological condition. It's related to the muscle loss due to the through and through bullet wound. So once again, if marked no, not a big deal. If marked yes, all this section must be filled out. Now, the second part of reviewing radiculopathy is section 5. And this has to do with your reflexes. So 2, and let's say 2, let's say 2, and let's say 1. Well, actually, let's say 1 here, hypoactive, and let's say 2. Okay. And then this portion, the sensory exam, we don't care about in rating. We don't care about this because a diagnosis is the same as if you were to say decreased, 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 decreased. And I will explain this a little bit more, that this has just a very complex nature to it. So I want to just we will reference back to this DBQ in our, whenever I go over the 38 CFR portion of this. Now, the straight leg test is not important. We don't use this. This has no bearing on your rating decision for radiculopathy. Now, we come down here to radiculopathy, and I had said up above that there are circumstances where if they don't put the diagnosis, it's okay. This is what I'm talking about. The examiner has to say yes, and then they have to say what involvement it is. Is it the femoral nerve? Is it the sciatic nerve, or is it a different nerve, like the ilioinguinal nerve? And if they check these boxes and they check, well, if they check yes to this question right here and they check the boxes, that's equivalent to having a diagnosis written above. But regardless, your DBQ would be deemed insufficient if they didn't check any of these boxes, because I need to be able to associate your symptoms with a specific nerve, and I can't guess. So if you have a private DBQ, if your examiner did not check one of these boxes, I couldn't use it. I can't guess. So let's say it's both, and let's say it's both. So I'm going to go to the 38 CFR Part 4, and this is about it. This section that I just went over. This is where radiculopathy stops. Okay. So I want to go to the 38 CFR, and I'm going to focus on sciatic nerves, but this is going to be a general overview. So try not to get too wound around there being so many different entries here, because the overall theme of what I'm saying will hold true for the most part for all of these. Now, you have it to where the examiner, let's go back to this DBQ here. And remember, oh, wow, let's say the examiner said everything was severe, right? It's the worst they've ever seen, right? Now, the reason why I cannot take the examiner at their word and give you the severe 60% is because of the manual and how we assign the percentages, how we determine what is mild, what is moderate, and what is moderately severe in the case of sciatic. It's a kind of a, it's unique to sciatica or sciatic nerve disabilities. You can get this too. And severe, like what it takes to be severe. So even though the examiner checked that you were severe, right? If we go back up here and we want to look at the strength and we want to look at the reflexes. Because if I go here, we're going to look for, in general, the disability is limited to sensory deficits. So what they mean by that is they mean that this sensory section down here, right, that you at least have something. Well, this is the same as having the diagnosis. So mild, and let me go back up here to 8520. Mild is 10% rating. So if you have a diagnosis or you have numbness, tingling, pain, 10%. Because the manual says that the disability is limited to sensory deficits. Or you could have very minimal reflex or motor impairment, abnormalities, mild or incomplete. So we are mandated as raters to follow this manual reference in how we interpret the evidence. So if all of these strengths were 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, and these were all 2s, then you do not show strength impairment nor reflex impairment. This would limit you to the mild category. Okay, I need you guys to understand this. This is how this is reviewed. I do not care what this human being marked for your severities. I don't care. Because I have to apply the laws and regulations, and this is how we apply it. So moderate, right? There's a lot of stuff that's said in here. But what you're looking for is combination of sensory and reflex or motor changes of a lower degree. Now, what that means like to me, whenever I'm reviewing your evidence, for the right leg, the fact that you have a 4 out of 5, that is moderate for me because you have impairment of strength in this particular leg. Now, if I looked over here at the left side, 5, 5, 5, 5. Okay, that's perfect strength, your maximum strength. But if I come down here, well, and let me go to the left. Here, let me do this. And let's say you have hypoactive reflexes on the left side. Well, you have lowered strength, so that will get you 20%, right? That'll meet the moderate category at 20%. Because you have lower strength, you don't have lower strength over here, but you've got lower reflexes over here. So if we look back at the manual reference, if you have changes to the motor changes or to the reflex changes, I can assign you moderate. I hope that you guys are tracking on this because this is the way we review it. So this is the most important section. Question 4A, 5A are the most important for you to get above 10%. This is how we get you there, okay? This is how you get yourself there, is by, number one, going to a VA examination and showing that you have strength impairments, that you have reflex impairments, if they're true for you. Once again, this has to be true for you. So if you're wondering why, you're like, my examiner said it was so severe, but I have to prove it. Remember, as the rater, I've got to point to the evidence that justified how I gave you the rating that I gave you. This right here justifies me giving you 20% for the right sciatic nerve, okay? This right here justifies me in giving you 20% for the left sciatic nerve. Now, so when we go into the higher realms, we're looking at more weakness, more impairment. Okay? So when we look at more weakness and more impairment is, I want to see a 3 here. Right? So this being a 3, I'm like, okay, that's or this being 0. Okay, so that's moderately severe for the sciatic nerve, or, it can be severe. You're looking for, what is it? Even though it's severe, complete in general, we're looking for like complete impairment here. Grade, very high limitation. So almost a 1 here would get you to severe. Oops, sorry. So like almost full impairment or would like a 1 out of 5 would get you to the severe for me. Like if I was looking at your claim, a one or a 2 out of 5 would get you to the severe in my book. The moderately severe, like I said beforehand, is limited to the sciatic nerve only. And this one is kind of like one of those ones where I can invoke if you had, like, let's say a 2. So a 4 would get you, in my book, a 4 would get you 20%, a 3 would get you, well, 5 would get you mild, 4 would get you moderate, a 3 or 2 would, this is up to the individual rater, but I would give moderately severe for like a 3 or a 2 in strength, or a 1 or a 0 in reflexes. And then severe, if you had 1, you also have to have the marked muscle atrophy for it. So that's why I kind of try to use the strength and the reflex impairment liberally to try to assign people the highest rating that I can. Because once we get to severe, you have to have atrophy in order to get it. And then for the 80%, you'd have to have complete foot drop, like you can't move your leg at all type situation. But that's kind of how, like, what the evidence is needed in order for me to start making these determinations. And this is the manual reference that QRT, the quality review team, is going to review if I applied the evidence correctly. So they will come right here to this one and say, okay, you know, you said it was mild, but I show a 2 out of 5 on strength. You undervalued the veteran's rating. Go fix it. That's what'll happen. So this is kind of what happens. Now, the other thing that I wanted to kind of generally discuss, okay, about peripheral nerve ratings is that upper extremities only get one rating per arm. However, each leg can have up to 5 separate ratings. So this manual reference right here tells you explicitly what nerves and what types of nerves fall into each category and the location. So you can talk to your doctor about, well, I'm having, pain in my quadriceps. Could that be the femoral nerve that's acting up, or the femoral nerve? And the reason why this is important is you can have 5 separate ratings for each leg. So if I find impairment at the 3 level, right? Impairment of strength on your left leg, and let's say we rate you for sciatic and femoral, well, both of these are going to get 20%. It's a big deal. Like, that can be life changing for certain people to have their nerves explicitly claimed correctly, right? Separately. So these are the nerves right here, the sciatic nerve, and these are the nerves that fall under the sciatic nerve. So if you had a posterior tibial nerve issue, we're just going to call that the sciatic nerve. And these are the regions that they affect. This is the femoral nerve. This is like the nerves that fall under the femoral nerve. So if you had both of these at issue, then we would just call it the femoral nerve. So not only is it important to have your symptoms on your DBQ identified correctly, but it's also like crazy important to have, based upon the locations, the types of nerves that are affected correctly articulated. Because I've only done it like 3 times, but I've had somebody get 5 nerves rated. Now, I won't go into this too deep this time because I am at 19 minutes, but there's a limit to how high. It's called the amputation rule, but sometimes they can artificially lower. Like if you got, let's say, you got 40% for 5 nerves, right? They might artificially lower that down to a certain degree, but you could technically get 100% service connected, I guess, for um, you know, for all the nerves involved. But as you come down here, there are different nerves that can individually be rated. So if we go back here and we go to the femoral nerve, what is that? That's so the femoral can only go up to max 40, right? So it's not like it's a generalization that can be made across the board that each one of these are uh, able to get 80%, but you can top off your claim pretty thoroughly if you can get the more of these that you can get service connected, because I think it's the ilioinguinal. Yeah, it only is like 10%, I think. Yeah, so ilioinguinal nerve is 10% at most, so you're not looking to get 80% on each one of these, but um, accurate. You want your rating to be as accurate as possible. So definitely review this particular manual reference 5312A2E and maybe review it with your doctor, print it out, and see if your symptoms and where they're located at make it to where you have more than just the sciatic nerve involved, because you can get additional percentages for, up to five, up to these five for lower extremities. So that's about all I wanted to kind of talk about today. Oh, wait, there was one more thing. In the event that you do get your peripheral nerve service connected, all subsequent evaluations are done on the peripheral nerve DBQ. This is that change that I talked about in 2024. So if you do have a service connected spine and you have service connected peripheral nerve conditions, once they're service connected, then you don't have to worry about the increases. So keep that in mind, because they'll be done on this DBQ right here for upper and lower, and it doesn't matter. The diabetes will be done on its own DBQ. So, but that's about all I wanted to kind of talk to you guys about, because there were some drastic misunderstandings about um, how on question 8A specifically, and well, my examiner said it was severe. Well, I'm sorry, but that's not the way we review it. It's not how we review it at all, and it kind of sets you up for failure if you disagree. You have to disagree based upon the evidence in the manual as to the strength, what qualifies as moderate and what qualifies as moderately severe and severe. So if you guys start using this technique, you're probably going to have a lot better results and be a lot more, at least, understanding as to how you got what you got moving forward. And that's about all I got for you in this video. Please like, subscribe, do the YouTube stuff. If you do like it, let me know. And I know that I wasn't as thorough for each individual disability. My take on this was more to explain how we're handing out these rating decisions, and not as much sciatic nerve specifically or external popliteal nerve. So that's about all I got for you. Raider out.